In my daily life, I use Bitcoin to buy electricity, buy airtime, and even buy groceries. I also use it to travel, pay for my flights, and also, when I'm in another country and find a place that can accept Bitcoin, I'd always go there. It has, taught me to be a little more frugal. I do not spend Bitcoin that I don't have or spend on purchases before I have saved up fully to acquire them. A lot of people benefit from using Bitcoin in the manner that now they are able to receive Bitcoin from effectively anywhere in the world and send Bitcoin to effectively anywhere in the world. It's so easy to send a Bitcoin transaction and verify that the transaction went through. So now people in low-income countries are in a position to work and receive Bitcoin and transact on a day-to-day basis.
Hey everyone, how are you?
Hello.
I'm gonna do a bit of announcement in português. So, oi gente, tudo bem? Faço sempre esse anúncio um pouquinho antes. Esse painel vai ser mediado totalmente em inglês. Então, a gente tem um sistema muito legal aqui na SetsConf de AI. Acho que todos vocês já testaram. Mas, para quem precisar, teremos aí o sistema, então liguem aí. E, bom, estamos com o KG agora. KG, so if you want to talk a bit about yourself, introduce yourself, people saw the video, but if you want to say a little bit about you and your work.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I effectively consider myself as a catalyst, right? In the scientific definition of the term catalyst, I'm trying to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin on the African continent, right? But also similar to a catalyst, I'm not trying to get bent out while doing it as well. So yeah, projects that I work on are generally aiming to accelerate Bitcoin adoption across the African continent. And yeah, Machangura is basically a project that was started from the belief that it's unethical for a person to not have the ability to send and receive Bitcoin at this point in time, right? And of course, I've worked quite a lot with Esteco because, yeah, I think they are one of the few companies that are actually doing magnificent work with regards to getting people, giving people access to Bitcoin in the easiest way possible.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about the origins of Machankura. What inspired you to create Machankura, and how does it address the challenges of the Bitcoin adoption in Africa?
Cool. So yeah, I got Orange Pill, went deep into the rabbit hole, and one thing that was major for me was, how can I share all of this information, and how could I have people in my neighborhood use Bitcoin, right? So few challenges, language barrier, but that's not going to be the topic of discussion here. Second challenge was a lot of the people I spoke with did not have internet on their phones, right? Some in my age group did have smartphones, so what I did do is set up a Wi-Fi hotspot on my phone so that I could tell them, yo, you should download Wallet of Satoshi, yo, you should download Phoenix Wallet, yo, you should download whatever else is your favorite Bitcoin wallet. And then I ran into problem number 2, which was they did not have space on their device, right? Because they had Instagram, TikTok, or WhatsApp. So TikTok and WhatsApp, and maybe even Instagram, are apps that consume so much data on the phone, right? And now with TikTok, things have gotten worse where people are downloading videos for later consumption or remixes, and then the user who doesn't have a flagship device runs out of space, so they cannot install yet another app, and they're not willing to delete an Instagram, TikTok, or a WhatsApp to install whatever is your Bitcoin wallet of preference. And then was the third problem where someone didn't have a smartphone, right? So what happens in Africa, South Africa to be specific, is a person may have a smartphone, but they will have a feature phone in the other pocket. Reason being, feature phones generally have a longer battery life, and South Africa was struggling with load shedding for a little while. So a person would still use a feature phone even though they have a smartphone. And so the feature phone was generally their primary device where their primary number was on, and the smartphone was just something to connect to the internet and use apps on Wi-Fi and whatever else. Cool.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about the technology behind it. So can you explain how Machankura utilizes the USSD technology to facilitate the Bitcoin transactions without the internet access? So just for clarification for some people, this primary phone, as they say, it's the, as they call it in Brazil, the telefone de avó, that doesn't have any type of technology in it. And that's what normally they use there. So I don't know if that's going to be explained in the AI translation, so that's why I wanted to clarify. But can you explain a little bit how this technology works and how it integrates with the system that you guys use?
Okay, yeah. So effectively, USSD is similar to an SMS, but with the service on the other end of the communication, right? So what we set up is like decision tree, right? At the start is the menu, and then the person gets to decide, okay, I want to menu option number 2, which is receive Bitcoin. And then when they go down that decision, they see all their options for receiving Bitcoin, either through their phone number or their Lightning address or whatever else is their third option, which is an on-chain Bitcoin address. So from there, we effectively run a custodial Bitcoin wallet, right? So it's similar to Wallet of Satoshi, similar to Blink Wallet, but instead of them accessing the service through an app, they access the service through dialing the code, which is preferably *833# But of course, due to regulations, we're not going to get that number. So we get whatever numbers available. So think of it like a domain, right? So instead of 833.mobi, it's *833#. And if that number is available in that country, users are able to access us. And instead of a domain naming service, the telecom runs a directory with all the special numbers that all these services are accessible to. So we effectively implemented something like a text-based website, right? That has no clicks or anything like that. It's just you show user text, and then the user gives you text input in response, and then from there they have 20 seconds to respond. Everyone's input, the user's input and the service's output, is also limited to 160 characters around there, and so everything we do has to bear this in mind, right? So we don't ask users for input that will take them longer than 20 seconds to input and longer than 160 characters to input. So yeah, Lightning address is great because they could type them out, and yeah, Lightning invoices not so great because they would need copy and paste functionality. So Lightning addresses are the way, or phone numbers are the way that a user would generally use the service. Even the Steco 16-digit voucher codes are great because they could just type out the 16-digit code as if they are topping up their airtime, but they're topping up their Bitcoin balance. Yeah.
Great. So I want to hop in a little bit about the individuals without formal identification. We know that's a reality, especially in South Africa, and how much Ankura empowers those individuals or access for them to access the banking's, financial services without being able to tap into the traditional ones. So how much Ankura helps people to access other types of ways to access money without being with physical money and without being Bitcoin.
Cool. Yeah, and I think the quickest way to answer that question is Machangura is a slang term for money, right? So we want to help people start seeing Bitcoin as yet another form of money, and not just, this speculative asset that goes up and down in a volatile fashion. And we've built in quite a lot of integrations to help people either receive Bitcoin easier or spend Bitcoin easier. Esteco being the way to receive Bitcoin easier, and Bitrefill being the way to spend Bitcoin easier. So in South Africa, you can literally live on Bitcoin and pay everything in Bitcoin, right? And it's not just Bitrefill. Another company is called CryptoConvert, but now it's called Money Badger, and we have integrations with both Bitrefill and Money Badger. And a person is able to go to the grocery store, do their groceries, pay the municipality bills, and so on and so forth. Oh, and by the way, I think Machangura is similar to like Dinero or something like that. I don't know, but yeah. So effectively, whether or not the person has an ID number, as long as that person is able to get themselves a phone number, they'll be able to use the service. We also have support for emails for people that don't want to use a phone number, so they could still use the service via an email account. So our aim is to just allow people to use Bitcoin as if it was money, and we use money to live, right? So yeah, we implement features that allow people to live on a Bitcoin standard.
I'm going to ask you something that it was not originally on the plan, but I think the people here really want to know about that. So basically, I want you to tell you a little bit about your experience with using Bitcoin in South Africa. So what's the reality there? We were talking about that earlier, but if you can share with the people a little bit about what the things that you do with Bitcoin, and how is that a reality of the present, not the future? So
effectively, I went on a journey where I wanted to figure out what to do with my disposable income. Right? First job, I think around 2015, 2016, young professional had disposable income. And of course, all the conventional knowledge is stocks, property, whatever else, investments, right? And then here comes Bitcoin, best performing asset over the past 10 years. And then I was like, wait, so why is a person going to do stocks, property, or investments when there's Bitcoin? But then again, if there's the whole hodl mentality, right? Then again, if you never spend your Bitcoin, how will the Bitcoin price go up? So I had made a decision somewhere around 2019, 2020 that I will live only on Bitcoin and I will give up on the Rand. And I also had to make a decision to quit my job, so which was, how I was getting Rands in the first place. So then I quit my job and I lived on Bitcoin. And yeah, I was fortunate that in South Africa there's quite a lot of Bitcoiners and Bitcoin organizations like Bitcoin Ekasi, which is a Bitcoin circular economy project similar to Bitcoin Beach in Brazil. And yeah, so I paid them a visit, I think, at least once every 3 months in like 2021 or 2022. And even there, without integrations, they have a circular economy. So I could go to like a tax shop, which is like a corner store, and spend Bitcoin. I could go to a local restaurant and spend Bitcoin, and they would be happy to accept it, right? And yeah, so through that, we start seeing other things like, for more stores to accept Bitcoin, then their suppliers need to accept Bitcoin, right? So if you're a business, you're going to pay your expenses in Bitcoin. So for their suppliers to accept Bitcoin, the importers and exporters need to accept Bitcoin. So we kind of then are looking at how and what could you build to help as many people accept Bitcoin as possible and help as many people spend Bitcoin as possible. And I think in South Africa, we have quite a lot of interesting Bitcoiners trying to solve that, whether it's Bitrefill, whether it's CryptoConvert, whether it's Bitcoin Ekasi. And it's one of those things where everyone is trying to push the needle forward in that regard.
Yeah, that's really cool. And if you want to talk a little bit also about the Pick and Pay integration and about how you can buy groceries and actual assets with Bitcoin, and how is a little bit on like living on that, because that was a decision of yours, but also if people go to South Africa here, I know some people are going in January.
Yeah.
If you can say a bit about what they can expect from there, of things that they can actually do with the Bitcoin system there.
Cool. So yeah, with Bitrefill, it's actually a voucher, right? But if you use Bitrefill anywhere else in the world, you'd know that it's a voucher. So you just get then process the voucher and then just give them the voucher. They enter the 12-digit code and then they settle your bill. With Money Badger, which now has a direct integration with Blink Wallet, you basically get to the till and say, "Yo, I want to make a QR payment," right? So the cashier doesn't even know that you're paying in Bitcoin, and they show you a QR code, and Blink Wallet scans the QR code, and then it pays Bitcoin to Money Badger via Lightning, and Money Badger settles the bill on your behalf. Done in like 2 seconds, right? So effectively, the other thing to know is that Pick n Pay tried this years ago, in 2016, 2017, before Lightning, right? And the CTO likes technology quite a lot. So the CTO said, "Yo, this Bitcoin thing, let us accept Bitcoin as a form of payment," but it was all on-chain, right? And so they rolled it out. It was a pilot project. The CTO went to a Pick n Pay to buy groceries. I think he bought like 100 rands worth of groceries. I think that's around 100 reals worth of groceries. But then the fee was 150 rands, right? And so that's where they stopped the pilot project, because effectively you can't buy 100 rands worth of groceries and pay a fee of 150. And yeah, so with Lightning maturing to the point that it has now, the CTO was like, "Oh, yo, if you guys want to try this pilot project again, let's do this." And the guy from Money Badger, of course, he was still eager to do it. So he built out the new version of it with Lightning, and it works. And I think the other thing that helped is that when they redid the pilot project, the main testers were like the kids in Bitcoin Ekasi, right? So I think we were seeing those kids spend Bitcoin at Pick n Pay for like a full year before it got announced, right? And Bitcoin Ekasi is one of those crazy projects where if you're trying out tech there, you have 8-year-olds trying the tech and 60-year-olds also trying the tech, right? So it shows that, oh, you could actually build Bitcoin UX that is very usable for both old and young. Right? And yeah, so I think that is one of the reasons Pick n Pay signed off on the pilot project, and now at any Pick n Pay in South Africa, you are able to spend Bitcoin via Lightning, thanks to the work that they did with Money Badger, and of course, Bitcoin Ekasi being a great test ground for any Bitcoin project you could ever think of, for South Africa at least.
Yeah, hopping on that theme about entrepreneurial opportunities, I think Pick n Pay is a great example of that. But in what ways does Machankura and Bitcoin Ekasi, but mostly Machankura in your part, support entrepreneurs in regions with strict capital controls to use Bitcoin, and also entrepreneurs in South Africa that want to integrate Bitcoin but don't know how?
Cool. Yeah. So I'd say we sadly don't support them enough, right? Because Machangura is effectively built out for the user, right? As I started looking at what businesses want and what businesses need, I saw that, we really have not implemented as many features as we need to support them. Yes, if the businesses die hard and they want to accept Bitcoin, it works, right? But then they will still have a hard time doing their accounting, right? Figuring out, okay, cool, is there capital gains that need to be paid for this? Is there whatever else, blah, blah, blah. And it's very hard to also export your Bitcoin transaction history and import it in like QuickBooks or whatever else you do accounting in, right? So yeah, I feel like in the coming few months, that is an area we're going to focus quite a lot on, because we should start seeing projects like the Mercury Mercury.com that is fully focused on the business side of it. If you don't know, Mercury is like a fintech for startups. It has integrations with accounting software, virtual cards, and so many different things, expense management stuff. And I feel like we're at a point where we need that for Bitcoin, right? Because the other thing, and what a lot of people say, is that when you onboard a merchant to the Bitcoin standard, what usually happens is that people don't come to spend their Bitcoin there, right? But then nobody barely ever mentions that that merchant is going to have a hard time doing accounting for all the Bitcoin that they have accepted, right? So yeah, we want to make it a turnkey solution where they don't have to struggle with accounting or anything like that. And I feel like what the guys at Phoenix Wallet did with their wallet is great. They made self-custody Bitcoin the easiest it has ever been. But now we need to bring things back to the world, right? How are people actually going to use this on a day-to-day basis from a institutional or entity perspective? And yeah, so I feel that's where we want to focus on for the next year.
Great. Hopping on a little bit about your future endeavors in that aspect, what are the next upcoming features or expansions that we can look forward to seeing in Machankura to enhance its services?
Oh yeah, I think the closest one is probably an app, right? I've had it ready for a while, but I just don't feel like releasing it. But yeah, Google Play said if I don't release it by November 25, they're gonna close my developer account. So I'm gonna release it by November 24. And then what else? Oh yeah, so the one that I was just telling you about is gonna be called Prosperity. But then we also had a project where we looked at how people with feature phones could actually self-custody Bitcoin, and it's on Java card, right? If you don't know, the SIM card has an operating system called Java card. It's a subset of Java, which does not have primitives like integers and strings and whatever else. It has bytes and, I think bytes, and some do have integers, but most chips don't have integers. They just have bytes and chars. So yeah, what we did is look at what you can do with Java card. And if you don't know, quite a lot of hardware wallets actually use Java card. I think Ledger uses Java card for their secure element. And the missing piece is effectively they built it out under the assumption that the user will have a computer that will process the blockchain data and then send it to the secure element for signing and whatever else, right? So what we need is to add some logic on the Java card applet side to process blockchain data and receive blockchain data via SMS and sign it off and broadcast Bitcoin transactions, right? And yeah, so sadly, I don't think this is a project that's going to be coming out anytime soon because we have to be at a point of privilege to actually deploy that applet to a sizable amount of people. And the point of privilege would be as a telecom or as a SIM card issuer, right? So I don't know about Brazilian telecoms, but in South Africa, each telecom has an applet on the device, right? And they keep updating it on a regular basis. So, but we did do the work. We're gonna release the logic open source to highlight all the problems that are there and all the solutions, possible solutions that are there. And if you want to then talk to a telecom, you could then use that as a foundation to say, yo, all the blockchain data is already being processed by this applet. And as a telecom, you are not taking on any counterparty risk by releasing this applet to your customers. And it's just cool, right? So yeah, but we may also be a mobile virtual network operator just to do a trial deployment of this.
Great. Following up a little bit about this and helping, the African system in general, the South African system in general, what is your long-term vision for Bitcoin adoption across the African continent, and how does Machankura fit into that vision?
Oh yeah, so effectively, there will be no more borders in Africa. If they are there, they will be very artificial because ultimately Bitcoin has no concept of a border, right? Sending a Bitcoin transaction locally and internationally is almost the same thing. And yeah, so what I see is effectively more businesses happening and more prosperity as well, more people spending Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis, and more entrepreneurs actually doing stuff in Africa, right? So one thing people ask me with the project is, aren't people going to move away from feature phones, right? And technically, yes, they will, but somebody has to make an investment to actually make that push, right? So what we are seeing is that due to capital controls and African currencies being very weak, nobody is willing to make that investment, because if you do make that investment, even if it's profitable, you're going to have a very hard time moving money out of that country after the investment was done, right? So if you look at Nigeria, where Emirates and a few other airlines no longer have flights going there, regardless of the fact that Nigerians are probably the biggest market for flights in Africa, they are not able to move their money out of the country, right? So what I see is with Bitcoin, we're going to see more entrepreneurs come in, more of the gaps that people identify, like, yo, why are people still using feature phones in the year 2024 when smartphones are so easy to manufacture? Then we will start seeing international entrepreneurs actually come in and exploit some of these opportunities, build very profitable businesses, and not have a hard time moving money out of the country, right? Or not have a hard time finding somebody to get the money off of their hands. And yeah, so for me, that's one of the things I see happening in the next year, in the next few years. And I think obviously Machangura will play a very crucial role there by ensuring that anyone in Africa can be in a position to play a very crucial part in that future.
Great. So we're going into the end of this conversation. I have a last question to you about what's your advice to the people here that might be contemplating the idea of using Bitcoin in their day-to-day lives and seeing Bitcoin as more as just a speculative investment or something to hodl, and are contemplating the idea of following your steps on that aspect. What's your biggest advice to them?
Oh yeah, just do it, right? Like Nike says, right? But to be more specific, you know, they say Bitcoin is permissionless, right? But I feel like permissionless is an understatement, right? Because the things you actually can do with Bitcoin are crazy, right? I don't know if I see it as resolved. Like if you've ever made the resolution to do something, right, and you do it, I think that is the closest thing to Bitcoin I could say. Right? If you ever decide to do something and you have Bitcoin, you're actually more able to do it. Quick story on how Machangura started. I set up a node on a Raspberry Pi in South Africa, Mamelodi, right, in the township, right, and once it finished syncing, I set up a Lightning node, and then I was like, wait, okay, I'm quite sure not everyone is able to run a Lightning node, so why don't I just build a service on top of this Lightning node that's sitting in my room? And that service is effectively Machangura, right? And then I checked out, oh, USSD is still a thing, blah, 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 blah. Within 2 weeks, I had the service in 2 countries, which was South Africa and Uganda. And before the end of the month or after 2 months, I had it in 6 other countries, right? So that being said, I don't think you could do that with any other technology, right? It's very hard to write code once and deploy it in multiple countries and have it work as if there's no difference between these countries. And I think Bitcoin gives you that, right? And yeah, so I'd like to see more people actually using Bitcoin, because nobody knows what is really possible if you actually take your own experiences as an individual, whether that is in fashion, whether that is in religion, whether that is in lighting, and you add Bitcoin as a component to that piece, right? Even if we look at what the guys at Bitcoin Ngako are doing, right? They were a community project similar to Bitcoin, Hope House in El Salvador, that was running for 10 years. Right? And due to the lockdown, they felt like, you know what, maybe we should call it a day. Right? Maybe helping kids stay off the streets by teaching them how to surf. We've done this for 10 years, and now we've reached the end of our life, right? But then they're like, oh, what are these guys in El Salvador doing? Oh, maybe we should also try using Bitcoin in our project. And I believe that Bitcoin has breathed new life into what the Bitcoin Legacy guys are doing, right? And they have done so much more over the past few years than they have even done over the past 10 years before they actually adopted Bitcoin. They have a skate park, probably the best skate park in Mossel Bay, because Mossel Bay is a small town, so I don't think there's any other skate park there. And they are attracting an international audience, right? So whatever it is you're doing, you don't have to be a techie. You could just be a person who knows how to talk to people. Just use Bitcoin with it and figure out how to actually incorporate it and build on top of it.
I would like to thank you so much, KG, for the conversation. It was
you.
amazing to have you here in Brazil with us in person. If you want to read a little bit more about KG's story, you can go to ested.co/stories. We have a really great interview with him there, and also his amazing video that you guys saw written. We have it in Portuguese with subtitles, so there's a lot of great material on KG there. Also, you can go and follow Machankura in some socials. You can search more about the project, and if you're in South Africa, reach them out. And KG, do you have anything to say?
Yes, we're hosting a conference in South Africa in January, right, in Cape Town. Right, so if you want to check us out, if you want to join us for something like this, but in Cape Town, please join us around January 26th to 28th. And if you see me around, I'll just be wearing this yellow jacket. I don't think anyone else is wearing such a bright jacket, so come chat.
Yeah, I really want to go. I'm going to talk to David. You're seeing that? Okay, but thank you so much. It was great. Thank you guys for watching that. It was great to be able to host this conversation with you guys. If you can go follow Esteco as well. I'll be there doing videos on Bitcoin in Portuguese, in English, and in Spanish. And if you guys are in El Salvador, for the ones that are going next to here, we're going to be with the stand there, and we're going to be also doing some panels. So reach me out there. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for being here, and I hope you had a great SatsConf, and see you guys next year here at the same place. Oh, by the way, can I do a little bit of an announcement? So if you're, I'm going to say that in Portuguese, whatever. Se vocês são de São Paulo, a gente está com um projeto muito legal aqui na Casa 21, que a gente vai fazer no dia 21 de novembro, às 7 horas da noite, um talk super legal sobre Bitcoin e liberdade, do projeto BitUps, junto com a área Bitcoin. Eu e Isabella estou tocando isso junto com eles. Vai ser muito massa, já tem link para vocês entrarem lá no Luma. Tem no Story também da área Bitcoin. E eu espero vocês lá para a gente ter uma discussão super legal sobre isso. Obrigada.